I've been watching your evolution over the past couple of years, your collaborations, who you've been collaborating with. Let's start with Dr. Dre, how you met Dre, and how that relationship started. Let's start there.
They were working on the Compton project, and King Mez and JT called me in. They were like, "We got to get this kid in here." So, my manager at the time was like, "You want to work with Dre? They want you to come over." I was like, "Yeah, right." Dre, yeah, right. And so, like, I went over there, and the first person I meet was Dre and DOC, and I was like, "Okay, cool." The dude's like 10 feet tall, and I was like, "All right, bet." And they was like, "What's up, man?" And then they went back to watching the game. I went in the studio, and they met just JT and Mez, and they were like, "Yo, man, we love your music. We love that song Suede." I was like, "Oh, bet." And so they're like, "We working on Dre's album." I was like, "Word, okay." And so they started throwing on beats. They threw on All in the Day's Work, and I love the beat. I was just like, "Yo, this is the craziest beat I've ever heard." Like, I was just ready to write then and there. And then before I got on the mic, they were like, "We want Dre to hear your song." And I was like, "He ain't heard it yet? Damn, I don't want to get kicked out the studio before I get on the mic." So they bring him in there, they play him the song, and he played it back like 3 times in a row. And he was just like, "All right, bet." And I was like, "All right, cool. Let me get on let me just try something on this." He's like, "You just want to try it right here?" And everybody was in the studio. I hopped on a mic, closed my eyes to start kind of freestyling, "All in the Day's Work." That just came out of nowhere. And he was like, "Yo, you sound crazy." Yeah. And we just kept working after that.
Kendrick. Talk about Kendrick, man, and you all sound great together, man.
Yeah, that's my bro, King Kendrick, man. Another one, really, really, another peer that I really admire and look up to, man. What he's done in the game, what his whole team has done in the game is amazing, and the whole team has always extended their hand and treated me like I was family before he even knew anything about me. And it was crazy. We never actually got to be in the studio together to work on like a record. It was always like, "Yo, where you at? Can you think you should do something?" Even for the Black Panther project, I just landed in Africa, and he was like, "I need you on this record, bro." I didn't know what it was gonna be for or anything, and I booked the studio and laid it, and then next thing I know, it was on Black Panther soundtrack.
Word.
And then with this one, I was going, we were always talking, going back and forth. He's got like a lot of good advice for me, and just like playing him records. And I sent him the Tense record, and like a year and a half later, he sent the verse back, and I was like, "What?" I almost crashed my whip. Yeah, man.
All right, salute to Kendrick, man. It's interesting to see on the track listing that you got Q-Tip on the album, right? Because you remind me of Q-Tip in some ways, right? Talk about Q-Tip.
Q-Tip, big inspiration. It's crazy that they were making the kind of music that they were making at the time in the 90s when it was so dominated by like gangster hip hop and just a lot of different music that was going on at the time wasn't necessarily like theirs, and they weren't afraid to be different. And that was definitely something I admire. And the soulfulness and the sampling and the production and also the rhyming and singing that Q-Tip does is like, that was it. That was like one of the artists that showed me that hip hop can be more than just one type of thing.
Word.
And another OG that I really admire and is like a mentor. We do a lot more talking and hanging out than we do music. You know what I'm saying? And eventually he got over to Dre's studio, and I got to watch them fan out on each other. It was so annoying.
Yeah, so what happened?
"No, you're the shit. You're the shit." And like, bringing out vinyls, and they really admire each other. So that was dope to see. And then they started making the beat together. And then it was like, whoa, we started writing, and we came up with something. And I wasn't going into it, trying to make like a Mac Miller tribute song or anything like that. But it had just happened. And that's just naturally what came out at the time. And I knew Tip could relate to it. And so he came back in and laid a verse. And he was one of the dudes that got to lay his verse with Dre and was really humble to like have Dre coach him through it. It was really cool to see that, because not everybody is into that. And he was all for it. You could tell that he was having fun with that.
Word. You just mentioned Mac. I know you and Mac had a real friendship, right? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, again, we did more hanging out than we did music.
Yeah.
It was just like someone I could call and just like talk about anything with. And it was always a good time with him. And he never took himself too serious, but he was like really the most serious lyricist and artist, musician person I met. Like, that was really like, when I say serious, I mean like he really did that.
He was the real deal,
He was
right?
real deal.
No doubt.
And everybody that knew him was affected by him, and it was just amazing to see how many people he touched in the industry in such a short time.
Word. Rest in peace, Mac Miller, man. Salute to him.